Hello everyone, and welcome to Right Wing Rising. So it has been a week since I made my first video, my first full-length video, under the new channel name of Right Wing Rising, and I wanted to address, even though it happened last week, the results of Super Tuesday and the aftermath of Super Tuesday, which of course was Nikki Haley dropping out. I was unable to make a video about this until now, but the results of Super Tuesday, even a week later, are still worth talking about. And because the way our elections work in a lot of states, some states that voted on Super Tuesday are still counting the votes. So technically, the results of Super Tuesday are still very fresh news. So without further ado, let's get into the topic at hand in today's video. But before we do, please like this video down below and subscribe to the channel if you are new. The support is greatly appreciated and will help grow my channel and get out to more viewers. So I thank you for doing that. And now that being said, let's get into the video. So obviously Nikki Haley dropped out of the presidential race on the Republican side, as most of you probably are aware, the day after Super Tuesday. She only won one of these 15 states voting on Super Tuesday. And honestly, for her, I'm surprised that was not enough, because she had been very delusional throughout the entire primary cycle in thinking she had any real shot at the Republican nomination for president against Donald Trump to begin with, and she kept moving the goalposts. First, it was winning New Hampshire, then it was finishing respectively close in second place in New Hampshire, and then it was winning South Carolina all along in her campaign, and then it was just finishing close in South Carolina, when she realized she also could not win that state either. At the end of the day, you have to win a lot of states to win the nomination for the presidency. And the fact that she could not win a single state, or a single contest rather, until she won Washington, D.C. on March 3rd, 2 days before Super Tuesday, and it was only a 19-delegate haul for her, when she already was trailing Trump by around 200 delegates. So she needed to build some momentum from this win in Washington, D.C., which she was trying to say was there. She was trying to say there was momentum after her win in Washington, D.C., which is also really funny I have to touch on, because I said in my last video, which was posted slightly before she won Washington, D.C. And I said it would be really funny if she won the primary, because what would it give her? It wouldn't give her many delegates. And how would she be able to tout it? The only primary she had won so far was in the swamp, in the center and the heart of the political establishment that is ruining our country and that voters that support Trump are fighting against. How is that going to be able to get her more voters and appeal to a large portion of the Republican base? It's not going to. So it was really funny, and it told us everything we already knew about Nikki Haley. Now, she was saying that this was the momentum she needed, this was the breakthrough she needed, getting a primary victory finally. The day after this primary, March 4th, the day before Super Tuesday, in North Dakota, Trump wallops her with 85% of the vote, basically a redux of the Idaho caucus results, where he won 85-15. This time he won 84-14, sweeping all 29 delegates, completely erasing the delegate gain of 19 that Haley had the day prior in Washington, D.C. So that kind of set the tone going to Super Tuesday, and kind of what you'd expect in these more Republican states, like North Dakota, that goes very red in the general election for presidential years, and really any other federal office in that state. In those states, you would expect a complete wipeout from Trump, and a lot of the states on Super Tuesday, as we will get into in a minute, were states with similar voting patterns to North Dakota. So we really couldn't expect many good things for Nikki Haley on Super Tuesday. Now, that being said, the one state she did manage to pick off was the state of Vermont, which again, kind of like Washington, D.C., really speaks to what her base is. Moderate Republicans, never Trump Republicans, left-leaning independents or more moderate independents, and Democrats that are crossing over to screw over Trump and support her in her quest to somehow get the nomination, because she's more palatable to Democrats, obviously much more palatable than Donald Trump is. And she was in these open primary states, such as Vermont is, getting those left-leaning independents and Democrats to cross over and support her. Even in Vermont, though, look at this margin. She only won by 4 points and 3,000 votes. That's it. Now, all the delegates have not even been allocated for Vermont, and she's only picked up half of them, 9 of the 17 that will be allocated. So Trump might possibly pick up a few of those delegates. So she didn't get all the delegates from Vermont because she narrowly won it. She only won it by 4 points. And keep in mind, this was the only state that she won out of the other states that voted on Super Tuesday. In the state of Maine, Trump surprisingly won it by a whopping almost 50 points. He got 73 to her 25, sweeping all the 20 delegates of the state. Honestly, I could see the state being more competitive since while Trump does well in the 2nd district and has won that in both 2016 and 2020, it's still a New England state, more moderate voting state, a little more Democrat leaning. I figured this could be a state similar to Vermont and New Hampshire that she performed fairly well in compared to her other primary performances. But Trump won this and won it convincingly. And Massachusetts, the big surprise of the night, honestly, in my opinion, Trump won 60% of the vote in Massachusetts, and he won all 40 delegates. And just look at the map over here of Massachusetts. Trump won Springfield, right there. He won Worcester. He won Boston. He only won Boston by 7 points, but he still won Boston. In a lot of these states, you would see Nikki Haley in the past primaries would be doing well in the more urban areas. And she couldn't even do that in a state like Massachusetts. In the urban areas, Trump won all the major urban areas in the state of Massachusetts and completely destroyed her there in a state that a lot of people saw as another chance for her to be competitive and steal a primary from Trump. But no, that did not happen. And then the state of Alaska, this was another one some people were talking about. Could she be competitive? Nope. He won it with 88% of the vote. It was probably one of his best performances. It might have even been his best performance, honestly. I'm not sure if he got 88% in another state. I don't think he did. So he completely stole the show in Alaska, got all 29 delegates there. That was a big surprise win, especially by the margin that he got it for Donald Trump. In Colorado, the big ballot case, the state of the center of that, where Trump got kicked off the ballot temporarily, the Supreme Court put him back on the ballot the day before Super Tuesday, and he responded by winning by 30 points and getting 2/3 of the delegates in Colorado, breaking 500,000 votes there in a state that he has struggled in 2016 and especially struggled in 2020, but he performed very well and well enough to wipe Nikki Haley off the map in the Rocky Mountain state. And then moving over to Minnesota, Trump won by 40, again getting 2/3 of the delegates there and not losing a single county to Nikki Haley. Oklahoma, he wins with 82% of the vote, sweeping all 43 delegates. Are you seeing a pattern? Look at the counties here. They're not even light red, they're dark red. He won all of them by over 60% of the vote. Tennessee, more of the same. Again, no light red counties. He won this by almost 60 points, getting 77% of the vote, winning all the delegates. Utah. This is a state that Nikki Haley was slightly competitive in. It was only a 14-point race that Donald Trump won. But yet he got all 40 delegates because the winner gets all 40 in the Utah Republican caucuses. She did win two counties in Utah, narrowly, both of them very narrowly, as you can see, 3 points and then 6 points for Davis and Salt Lake counties. But Trump still won it. He won it by 11,000 votes and by 14 points. So even the states that Nikki Haley gets close in, she really doesn't get close by normal metrics. If a candidate loses a state by over 10 points in the general election for a presidential race, that's considered a solid, respectable win by the winning candidate in that state. This was Trump's smallest margin of victory, and it was 10 points bigger than Nikki Haley's only victory, which happened in Vermont. Completely unbelievable showing by Donald Trump and a pathetic showing by Nikki Haley. And then in Virginia, another state that, okay, maybe she could be competitive. You can see she won some counties over here, obviously winning Richmond, which was really no surprise. Alexandria, Fairfax County, that's no surprise. But those are the only counties she won. And Trump, despite that, still won by almost 30 points, clearing 63% of the vote and winning practically all of the delegates up for grabs in Virginia. So you can see it's been an absolutely dominating night for Donald Trump to this point through all the states you've looked at. Of the 15 states that voted on Super Tuesday, we have talked about the 10 that only had the presidential primaries happening on Super Tuesday and no down-ballot primaries. Well, there were 5 of the 15 states that also had down-ballot primaries for races in the House, Senate, and other statewide offices in their respective states. So we'll now talk about those 5, starting with the state of Alabama. Trump, again, won every single county in the state by a landslide margin, and he won overall with 83% of the vote, beating Nikki Haley by 70 points and getting all 50 delegates. Down ballot in the House, most seats in the state are either safe Republican, one safe Democrat district, the 7th district, but the 2nd district has been redrawn to be more competitive / more Democrat leaning due to a Democrat lawsuit based on Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act that causes it to be more Democrat now, unfortunately. That being said, though, very interesting result out of it. Brubaker and Dobson advanced on the Republican side. Brubaker getting a high share of the vote with 40%, so he's probably favored in the runoff to get the nomination for the Republicans in that seat, since neither candidate received more than 50% of the vote. But we can see in this seat here that for the Democrats, they had a total of 57,000 votes and change, whereas for the Republicans, they had 56,000 votes and change. Basically 100% matching the Democrat total in this seat that's supposed to be likely Democrat. Now, you could say that this is because there was a higher turnout on the Republican side due to the quote-unquote more competitive Republican presidential primary than the Democrat presidential primary is, but it'll be interesting to watch the vote margin and the vote total for the Democrats and Republicans in the runoff when there will not be a presidential primary happening on the top of the ticket to see what the margin is, because it's possible, based on this vote total, that this seat is closer than previously expected. In the 1st district in Alabama is the other district I would like to talk about, as it pitted Barry Moore against Jerry Carl, 2 Republican incumbents that got redistricted into one district. It was Carl's district originally, but Moore was in the 2nd district. Since it got more Democrat, he decided to not run for re-election there and move to the 1st district to challenge Carl. And he won, which is great because Moore is a lot more conservative than Carl across the board and has a lot of quietly solid votes on a wide range of bills. So I'm very happy that Moore won by the skin of his teeth, a 2%, 51-49 victory for Barry Moore. Moving on to Arkansas, Donald Trump again won this by a whopping margin of almost 60 points, getting 77% of the vote. Only one county was even close, and that was the county that houses Little Rock, the capital of Arkansas. Another huge win for Trump, not much to say about that one. But in the House, all 4 seats are Republican. 3 of them were uncontested in the primary. But in the 3rd district, Steve Womack only got 54% of the vote to his challenger, State Senator Clint Penzo's 46% of the vote. Very narrow, and unfortunately Clint Penzo fell short because Steve Womack is a horrible, horrible rhino in the United States House of Representatives. Hopefully he can be primary in 2026. It was good to see that voters aren't happy with him and that Clint Penzo got this close to winning and unseating him. It shows that the voters in his district are paying attention. Moving to North Carolina, Donald Trump won with 74% of the vote, a 50-point win against Nikki Haley in a swing state. This is not a deep red state. This is a swing state. Crazy that he won and didn't lose any counties, and won as large as he did, winning by over 500,000 votes in the primary. Now, there also was a governor race happening there, and on the Republican side, Mark Robinson won with 65% of the vote, which is really good to see that the Republican base is fairly unified behind him in the state of North Carolina, and that's very good to see because he alone got more votes than the entire Democrat ticket did for their primary for the nomination for governor on their side of the aisle. Mark Robinson is the current lieutenant governor. He's phenomenal and would make a great, great governor of the state, and I really hope to see him win in November. It would be huge for the future of North Carolina. For the lieutenant governorship, in the Republican side, we have Hal Weatherman and Jim O'Neill moving on to the runoff to decide the nominee in that race, and they were both solid candidates, so I'd honestly be happy with either one winning. And for Attorney General, Dan Bishop, the current sitting Republican congressman, was uncontested in his race. I really, really hope he wins that race. He's a phenomenal congressman, one of our best, honestly, and would make a ridiculously good Attorney General. So the Republicans have a really good slate of candidates for the statewide offices happening in North Carolina this November. Down ballot, we have more House races in North Carolina that happened. And in the 1st district, which is a competitive district the Republicans are trying to win and flip red, Lori Buckhout won against Sandy Smith narrowly in that primary to advance to be the nominee. In the 3rd district and the 5th district, the 7th district as well, all the Republican incumbents won in those seats. But in the 6th district, which is a seat the Republicans can now flip due to redistricting, several seats have gone from lean to likely Democrat to safe Republican in North Carolina, in a positive development for the Republicans in the House. In the 6th district, the Trump-backed candidate McDowell advanced to the runoff, getting the most amount of votes of the Republican candidates with 26% to former Congressman Mark Walker's 24%. So that will be a close runoff to watch later on in the primary cycle. In the 8th district, that's another seat the Republicans can flip. Harris won the nomination, getting barely over 30% that he needed to avoid the runoff. Hudson, the incumbent in the 9th seat for the Republicans, won renomination. Pat Harrigan in the 10th seat, he won the nomination with 41% of the vote. After losing in the November election last year, he will now get another go-around to win a House seat. And then in the 11th district, the Republican incumbent there, Chuck Edwards, won renomination. The 12th seat is safe Democrat. In the 13th seat, we will have another runoff to determine the Republican nominee for that seat. And then Tim Moore, the Speaker of the State House in North Carolina, overwhelmingly won the nomination, getting 75% of the vote in that seat. So a lot of good results down ballot for North Carolina, getting a lot of solid nominees in seats that they are either pretty much guaranteed to flip or competitive seats that they're looking to flip in the November House elections. Now, moving to California, Trump won almost 80% of the vote, and all of the 169 delegates of the state, a huge delegate prize that Trump gets all to himself, winning every single county in the state of California. Looking down ballot to the Senate race happening there, Adam Schiff and Steve Garvey, the Republican, will advance to the general election as the top two in the open jungle primary in California. All the Republican, Democrat, Independent candidates are on the same ballot, and the top two vote getters for all the races advance to the general election. This is the open primary. In the special open primary, Steve Garvey actually finished above Adam Schiff. I'm really not sure what made the difference there, if I'm being completely honest, because he got 200,000 more votes than Schiff did, and he won some more counties. More counties are red than in this map here, whereas here he got, I think it's about 30,000 less votes than Schiff. Either way, a pretty respectable performance for a Republican in California, especially considering Garvey has really not spent any money or campaigned in California, so he probably has a good shot to at least crack 40+% in the November election. And while obviously California is a very, very, very long shot bid to win a statewide election, especially at the Senate level, for Republicans, a good performance from Garvey is still important because it will help with the many competitive down-ballot races happening in the House. There were many, many good down-ballot results for the Republicans in competitive House races in California, possibly being a good sign for the future. This is a state where turnout was also high for the Democrats because there is a Senate primary, a competitive one, with many high-profile Democrats running in the race. So turnout was high on the Democrat side, not just the Republican side. So the fact that the Republicans were doing very well in turnout in competitive House seats definitely should give them some hope that they should be able to hold some toss-up seats and also flip some seats. Now, a couple to look at is that in the 3rd district, Kevin Kiley, the incumbent, got 55% of the vote. He should be safe in November. In the 9th district, Josh Harder, the Democrat incumbent, didn't even crack 52%. This is rounding up from his figure. He got 51 and change % of the vote. So that is a race to watch in November. Granted, it's only 60% of the vote in. As you'll see, all of these seats are not 100% in because it's California, and the DMV sloths from Zootopia are the vote counters there in that state. Be that as it may, even with 60% of the vote in, that's a really bad sign for Josh Harder there, and a good sign that it could be competitive in the fall, and they'll probably have a chance to maybe flip that seat. And then we go down to the 22nd district, with Valadao being the incumbent there, and the other Republican candidate for that seat, he and that candidate combined for almost 60% of the vote. And that's a seat the Democrats are targeting to flip, so that's a very good sign for Republicans there. And then the 27th seat, Mike Garcia, the incumbent there, got 56% of the vote. Another good sign for Republicans there, trying to hold on to that seat. And we scroll all the way down to the 40th district. Kim got 57% of the vote. Calvert in the 41st got 52% of the vote, so that one is one the Republicans should really spend on to make sure that they can hold that seat and keep Calvert in there for another term. Steele in the 45th district got 56%. Good sign for her re-election chances. And in the 47th seat, where Katie Porter is currently the incumbent, but she's retiring to run for the Senate. She lost. She didn't make it to the general election. as she finished third, now in the top two. And Scott Baugh got 33%. He is the candidate that challenged Katie Porter in the midterms and narrowly lost, and this time he and the other Republican candidates combined for over 50% of the vote, showing strong signs in that district that they can take it back and flip it. And finally, in the 49th district, Mike Levine got 51% of the vote, and all the other candidates were Republican. So that means it was 51-49 in favor of the Democrats. That is a seat the Republicans should definitely spend in and put a lot of resources in to flip that seat. So we can see that the Republicans did very, very well down ballot, because the seats that they currently hold that are competitive seats, they really, really performed very, very well, with strong chance to hold on to them and win them again. And the seats that they're trying to flip, such as the 47th and 49th, they had very, very strong showing. So very, very good signs down ballot for the Republicans, in races that served as a preview for the November election. And last but not least, we have the Lone Star state of Texas, where Donald Trump, again, see if you're seeing a pattern, got almost 80% of the vote, winning by 60 points, taking every single county in the state, getting nearly 2 million votes. The Republicans as a whole got almost 2.5 million votes, and Trump swept the delegate haul in that state. Down ballot, Ted Cruz won the Republican primary for renomination to the Senate pretty handily. He almost got 2 million votes and got 88% of the vote, winning every single county, and should have a much easier pathway to victory in November than he had in 2018 against Beto O'Rourke. And briefly looking at some House races down ballot, again, there's a lot in Texas, so we won't look at all of them. We'll just look at a couple key ones. There are 38 districts in total in Texas. In the 2nd district, Dan Crenshaw has a surprisingly close primary against Jamison Ellis. 59-41 was the final percentage tally. Similarly to Steve Womack, narrowly holding on in the primary in Arkansas against the conservative state senator Clint Penzo. Either way, this is a positive, because it shows people in the district are paying attention to how bad their representative is in Congress, and that should push him to the right. Also should make it easier to primary him out next time, because Ellis ran in 2022 against Crenshaw in the primary and got a very low vote total. So this is a big jump from last time, showing that more people are paying attention to how bad Crenshaw is, which is very good for the future. Down in the 12th district, Goldman and O'Shea advanced to the runoff, and O'Shea is my personal pick. I hope he's able to pull out an upset in the runoff. Down in the 23rd district, Tony Gonzalez, the Rhino incumbent congressman, got 45% to Brandon Herrera, his major challenger, is 25%, and they're both going to the runoff. I hope that the conservative base rallies around Herrera and he's able to pull it out and unseat Gonzalez, who is really terrible, and Herrera will be a massive upgrade in that seat. And then we go down to the 26th district, where Brandon Gill, the Trump-endorsed candidate in that open seat, won with 58%, and he should go on to win very easily in November. And then finally, last but not least, we have in the 34th seat, the former Congresswoman Flores. She won with 81% handily, getting the nomination, giving Republicans their best chance to flip the 34th seat Republican in November. So there you have it. That is a recap of all the presidential primaries that happened on Super Tuesday, as well as the important down-ballot races that happened in the 5 states also holding down-ballot primaries on Super Tuesday. Trump won 14 out of the 15 contests. 12 out of the 15 were landslide victories, outside of Utah being a 14-point victory and Massachusetts being around a 25-point victory. That's not even really that close, but compared to other states that he won by 30 points or more, they are relatively close. He got 80% or more in a lot of states. So Haley dropped out. She couldn't even clear 100 delegates for all the primaries that she ran in. Trump has almost 1,100 and probably will clinch the nomination officially by crossing the 12-15 benchmark to win the nomination in the primaries that are happening tomorrow, since he is now running basically unopposed, and will therefore get all the delegates that are handed out and allocated in the primaries happening tomorrow. So look for him to officially clinch. The Republicans had a lot of good results down ballot, having strong primary challenges to rhinos, forcing some rhinos like Tony Gonzalez into a runoff, and the rhino, massive rhino, Speaker of the State House in Texas, Dade Phelan, got pushed into a runoff against his very conservative challenger and is very likely to go down in that runoff. So again, more good news for the Republican Party and the conservative movement at large. With so many states voting on the same day, there definitely can be a lot of takeaways, and they provide a good preview of the November elections and a good barometer for how each party is doing. And the Republican Party and Trump appear to be in pretty good shape after last night's elections.